Welcome to GAEL Unscripted, where leadership meets learning and real conversations drive real impact. I'm Ben Wiggins, Executive Director of GAEL. Join us as we go beyond the headlines with Georgia's top education leaders. Let's elevate the conversation. Good day, GAEL members. We're here today back for another episode of GAEL Unscripted, and we have two phenomenal guests with us. We've got Cindy Flesher from right here at our GAEL organization, and we also have Gina Linder, who is a former school employee and high school principal, now works for Varsity Brands. But they're here today to talk to us about women in leadership. And both of these ladies have had a fantastic career. I can't wait to hear all of the great things they're going to share with our GAEL members today. We're going to kick it off and let Cindy begin by introducing herself and telling us just briefly about herself, followed by Gina.
Well, I am glad to be here today and share some thoughts about women in leadership. My experience started with being in the classroom, teaching in kindergarten and first grade primarily for the first 8 years of my career. Then I became an assistant principal for instruction at the current elementary school that I was teaching at. So I was promoted within the school, and then eventually became promoted as principal at that same school, which was Centerville Elementary in Houston County School District. Once I was there, I was at Centerville probably about 13 years total with my principal experience teaching and assistant principal experience. Went to the central office, so I worked with all of the elementary principals, supporting them, encouraging them, and dealt with all of the problems in the district, parents, policies, all of those kinds of things. And then I accepted the role of assistant superintendent of operations, which was over all of the principals. That was a very challenging role that I was in, and only lasted there 1 year before becoming the deputy superintendent for the last 7 years of my career, where the responsibilities that I had were human resources, technology, and professional learning for the district.
Awesome. Gina?
Yes, I'm Gina Linder. I'm originally from Blue Ridge, Georgia. I played basketball through college, and so I went into my teaching career as wanting to be a girls basketball coach. And so after I finished college, played through college, I worked at Chattooga County High School for 4 years as an assistant girls basketball coach, but I also coached football while I was at Chattooga High School, and that would have been around 1994, 95, 96 range when I was coaching football, and there's nothing like a Friday night under the lights on the sidelines, that is for sure. After that, I moved to Murray County High School, where I continue coaching girls basketball, teaching English language arts through all of that. When I decided it was time for me to move out of the coaching world, I applied in the middle of a year for an assistant middle school position and got that job mid-year. And the principal in the spring of that year at the middle school took the HR position, and I became the principal at that middle school. I was principal there at the middle school for a year and then was moved up to become the high school principal at Murray County High School, where there were 2,300 students. And at the time, we had 16 outdoor learning cottages and entrances and exits all over the building. And the building was built to hold about 1,500 students. So, and then I retired 3 years ago.
Oh,
and
congratulations.
Now, thank you.
We're all three retired.
Yes.
Hence the big
Best
smiles on the
decision.
faces.
Yes, and the lack of not so much stress this time of year. So, yes, then I retired, and I do consulting work with Varsity Brands, and also with a company called CRI now, and then I do some still stay connected and do some work with GAEL and GASSP.
That's awesome. Gina and I served on the GASSP board for years back in our previous lives as high school principals. So why don't we start off maybe by talking, both of you came through the ranks in unique ways. I think our members are probably looking up Chattooga County's football record.
I will say I was the only coach. I worked with the kickers and did some conditioning, and I was the only coach that had an athlete get a scholarship
Look at that.
one of those years.
Serious street credit going on today
yes.
for one Gina Linder. But you heard kind of their path through education. Cindy was in the same building as a teacher, then an assistant principal, and then the principal. And there's a lot of pros and cons with that. I can't wait to hear some of that story. And then Gina went from the middle school and actually graduated with your 8th graders up to 9th
Yes,
grade. So
I
that's
did.
kind of unique too. So why don't you talk to us about those first leadership jobs, positions that you got, and what did you do? What were your thought process going into those? And a great question to talk about is, how did you handle all of the questions you get as a leader when you didn't know the answers immediately? Maybe talk about those things a little bit. Cindy, why don't you kick us off?
I remember distinctly after I was named assistant principal for instruction at Centerville Elementary, I happened to be going to some kind of professional learning event with our director of professional learning for the district, Frankie Ross. And I said, Frankie, people are always asking me questions. I don't know all the answers. What do I do? Her advice to me was fake it till you make it. But she explained further on that. It wasn't just a given answer, you make it up, and go with something that's incorrect or wrong. Instead of that, just telling the person, hey, I don't know the exact answer to that, but I'm going to find out and I'll get back with you. But be confident still in everything that you do and the decisions that you're making, but so that you can fake it till you make it. But you have that time a lot of times, unless it's a crisis situation, you don't have to give a person an answer right then. Just say, you know what, hold on a minute and I'll get you the right answer for that.
That's awesome. Gina?
I think that was one of the biggest pieces of advice that I received was that you do not have to provide an answer immediately unless there is a crisis. I mean, you have to, as an administrator, think on your feet, and you have to be quick with some things, but there are a number of things that you can just think through, find the correct answers, and then an experience I had, we had made a decision to start making some changes and implement some things, and one of those ideas was a complete disaster. I mean, it just was. And we were making gains and progress, and there was so much positive energy in the building, and then this just did not work. And I got up in front of the faculty and I said, who made that decision? Who was it that made that decision that we were going to try this? And I think just helping them understand that you're human like they are, and you're not always going to know the answer. It's impossible to always know the answer. And it is okay to say, I don't know. Give me some time and I'll get back with you. But it's also a good thing to tell them, and if I haven't gotten back with you in a couple of days, email me. Come by and remind me, because you are going to be so busy and so overwhelmed that you might forget to follow up with them. So
That's great advice. I think it's good reminders for our GAEL members out there that may be new leaders. Your people know that you don't have all the answers. They know that this is your first job or first position as a principal or as an assistant principal or at the district office. They're okay with you not knowing all of the answers. They will respect you when you're honest with them and when you go to the right people to get those answers. I think that's just phenomenal advice. Talk to us a little bit. There may be some GAEL members out there that are either brand new in their roles or they're aspiring to be an assistant principal or district office. And talk to them about what are any unique challenges or experiences that you've faced as a female leader at the school or district level.
Well, I don't feel like I've faced any challenges just because I'm a female. The job itself is challenging, whether you're male, female, or whatever. It is challenging, and it's hard for anybody. And I think, when I came through as a leader in education, women before me had already kind of broken through that glass ceiling. And so there were plenty of women in leadership, especially in Houston County, where I spent most of my career. And so that door had already been open, and I didn't feel like there's anything I had to do differently or better or, than my male counterparts or anything to get a job. And I, one of my biggest influences in my life is my mom, and she was always such a positive person, still is a very positive person. But one of the things she used to tell me was all the time, and it's been ingrained in me, is anything boys can do, girls can do better. And so that's how I thought it was. I thought that was like a Bible verse or something. That's the rule of law. Yes. So I never really saw myself as any different than anybody else, and I can't think of a single unique challenge because I've been a female leader.
And I'm pretty much the same way. I didn't really feel like any of my challenges were simply because I was a female leader. Like you said, there were plenty of women leaders ahead of us who were breaking those ceilings and setting a good foundation for me as I came through as a female leader. But something that is funny, my first year as a high school principal, we were in a really large region classification. And the first region meeting that I went to with the athletic director was in Atlanta, and we were way in North Georgia. So we were that outlying school, and in walks a female principal with her male athletic director, the entire room. I was the only female in the room. And when I walked in, things just gradually got silent, and everybody turned and looked at me. And I said, "Hey, I'm Gina Linder. I'm the principal at Murray County High School. This is my assistant principal, Miss Chalcom, and it's nice to meet all of you. And we're looking forward to working with you." And so you just go in with confidence that you are in the position you are in because people believe you can make change.
That's right.
And that you can lead and move people forward. You just always exude that confidence. Talking about your mother, I had an amazing mother who was very strong like yours, and she would always tell me, "I don't care what situation you're in, you never let anybody see that you are nervous. Your whole insides may be shaking, but little lady, you better get up there and not let them see that you are nervous."
That's right.
And I have taken that with me through my whole life. The very first time I spoke at graduation was in front of about 5,000 people. And I could feel my heart beating fast. And I could hear my mother saying, "You better not let them see you are nervous." And when I asked people afterward, "Could you tell I was nervous?" They were like, "Not at all." And at that point I said, "Thank you, Mom."
Wow.
Thank you, Mom. So,
Great. That's fantastic advice and fantastic tributes to both of your mothers. That is just phenomenal. Cindy, talk a little bit about going in that transition from teacher to assistant principal to principal in the same building at Centerville Elementary. What were the pros and cons of that? What were some unique challenges? How did you establish yourself as the leader when just a few years prior you were one of the teachers?
Well, it wasn't an easy thing, and it took time, but I think I earned their respect, especially because I was pretty young to be named an assistant principal. I think I was about 33 when I was named assistant principal, and so I hadn't been in the classroom long, 8 years, and I had only been 2 years at Centerville before I was hired as the AP, so they didn't really know me that well as a teacher. And fortunately the school improvement team was a part of the interview panel, and so they did select me. But some of the veteran teachers, they were really not sure about me. But I think over a period of time, they understood that I was there to help them, support them. I really never really wanted to be an administrator until I came to Houston County, and they had an assistant principal for instruction position that I had never seen before. It was always like an AP for discipline. That's all, it was. And I knew I didn't want to do that. But for instruction in Houston County, that role was to help grow teachers, support them, provide professional learning for them, meeting their needs to help make them better. And that was what I wanted to do. I thought, this is great. I loved being in the classroom with my students, but being able to help teachers, that was just going to be exciting for me. And so it took time to build those relationships with them and get them to trust me and to be real. And I had this misconception, or I thought, since all of my classroom teaching experience was in kindergarten and first grade, I was like, no, I can't. I'm not teaching upper grades because they're like grown people. I can't do that. But as I became the assistant principal and saw my same little kindergartners and first graders transition through second, third, fourth, fifth grade at my school, I realized they're just the same kids, just in bigger bodies. And so, I realized they're all just kids, and probably even at the high school, it's not much different. They're still kids.
They're kids in bigger bodies.
Yeah. So some of the cons to that, I guess, would be, they kind of know you. You can't hide anything. If you were not a good teacher in the classroom, they would know that likely as you came into that role. But the positive things about that was I already knew where our school was and how we were performing and how much our teachers loved our kids. And so it made it an easier transition to move into that administrative role because I had that background and knowledge. And I loved the kids, loved the parents, and it's a very special place in my heart. Centerville is. I love to go back there. We go back and visit teachers and provide lunches for them. It's just a very special place. So I think all in all, the positives or the pros outweighed the negatives on making that transition within the school.
That's
And
awesome.
I agree. I was a teacher at Murray County High School, and then I became an assistant and then a principal at our middle school that fed into the high school for just a year and a half. And then I became the principal at the same high school where I taught. And so I definitely think way more positives because they knew me already. I had established myself as a teacher. I'd been a department chair. I had been active on the leadership team and the school improvement team. And I also knew that the teachers cared about the kids. And as teachers who's really working hard and who's sliding out the door early. And so there were just a lot of positives, and because they know you and they know your work ethic and they know where your heart is, and you know where their heart is. And 99%, and I tell new leaders this all of the time, 99.9% of your staff want to do what you ask them to do. And a lot of times when you're upset with them, if you just sit down and say, hey, what were you thinking? Talk to me about this. It's going to save you a lot of frustration and anger just by being able to sit down and have conversations. So on the other side of that, the difficult part was having to sit down with people you knew really well and have those conversations of, you're not on board, let's talk about why you're not on board, and then eventually having to just let some of them go.
Right.
Those were, I had to let some people that were close friends, I had to let them go, and that was tough.
Yeah.
It was tough, but always doing what's best for kids.
And I would agree. I think dealing with personnel issues as a principal that came through the building, but even as a principal, if you've been at a school 5, 6, 7 years, you want that culture where you feel like a family and you love each other, trust each other and all that. But sometimes you have to address things with people that it's just, I think the situation gets blurred sometimes or kind of gray. You're like, does this rise to the level that I really need to address or not? And I knew that, realized that difference when I went to the district office and I was removed from a building. I could definitely see situations so much more clearly to say, no, we got to address that. You got to address that. But when you've got these people that you just know and love and having to correct them or have some of those difficult conversations, that was probably one of the hardest things I think to do.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, at this time, we'd like to thank one of our partners with GAEL, and that's Varsity Brands. They've been an outstanding partner with us for years, and we actually have Gina here today who works for Varsity Brands. So, Gina, why don't you just take a minute or two and just tell our members how could Varsity Brands help their school or school district?
Well, Varsity Brands is all about enhancing school culture and climate, and we want to help you have the best experience in your building that you can possibly have for students. So Varsity Brands is the overarching company, kind of like GAEL is for GASSP and GAMSP and GAESP, and Varsity Brands is the arching umbrella for BS in sports, that does all athletics equipment, and basically anything, if you turned the shoebox up and shook it out of a school, anything that would fall out, we can provide. And then Varsity Spirit, which is the cheer, band, and dance, and provide all of the stuff for that, very connected with the national competitions and things for dance and cheer. And then yearbook. So we have the yearbook that just kind of captures all those great memories. But one of the main things that I really like, and I made the transition to become a Varsity Brands Impact School toward the end of my career, which was using BSN, using Varsity Spirit, and using the yearbook company. One of the best things about it is that with all of those companies, they have put a lot of money into developing programs like Believe in You, which is all about character ed and social emotional learning and mental health, and providing support and resource materials at no cost to schools for those things. And then a student leadership program and curriculum, and then Surge program for female athletes, since we're talking about female leadership and helping those female athletes. Female athletes typically become female leaders. And so there's a curriculum there for helping mature those female athletes into leadership roles. And then, so just a lot of money put into other things outside of just the sport and the spirit. And it's about the whole child and the whole school and the whole school culture, and enhancing that school culture.
Well, that's fantastic. So if there's any GAEL members out there, principals, assistant principals, athletic directors, if you'd like more information on how Varsity Brands could help, she'll certainly help you figure that out. You mentioned something a little while ago about the dealing with personnel issues, and your school is kind of like a family. I've always felt like the role of principal is the most difficult job in a school district, because you're constantly getting the push-pull from your teachers and your parents and the community and the district office. So, Cindy, since you've worked in both at the school level and the district level, talk about how principals have to go about navigating that, because they do. It's a very, very tough situation.
Yeah, it's the difference between the us and them. They did this to us, right, from the district office. It is tricky sometimes because, at the district office level, the executive cabinet, to include the superintendent and maybe assistant superintendents, may come out with an initiative for the district that's the expectation for the schools. And it may not be something that you agree with. And hopefully you're in a district where you can share any of those concerns, or maybe your district includes you in that process, for initiatives for the district. But somehow you've got to take that messaging from the district and make it a positive thing for your staff. And so it's tricky sometimes to think of those things, but think about the benefits and why we're doing this, and you may have to ask some of the people at the central office, okay, help me with my messaging to my school, and how I can say, why are we doing this? Why are we implementing this program, this computerized program that's not even aligned to our standards, or whatever it happens.
Throw those things in there.
Yes.
That's right. Yeah.
Just to kind of, at least make them think a little bit too. But hopefully you have that kind of a relationship with your district office support staff so that you can have those questions if something really out of the norm, or if it's not aligned to state standards, or why are we doing it? And I agree totally with what Gina said earlier about putting the needs of students first, and I would highly recommend coming up with a school motto or mantra that you live by. Ours at Centerville was putting children first. So we kind of ran everything through that filter. Are we going to change the car ramp pickup? Okay, what's best for kids? Not what's best for parents, not what's best for teachers. Not that parents and teachers aren't important, but the whole reason we're there is for students and trying to do that. So even if it's a message from district office that we're having to share and tell our staff, try to frame that with your mission to do that. Parents and staff, it helped me to have that motto of putting children first, because if they came to me with a problem asking, well, why did you do that this way? I can say, well, our goal is to put children first, put safety first, put instruction first. And so that just helped me to have that as a guiding force with all of my issues that came up.
Yes. Yeah. And our motto was student success, no exceptions, no excuses.
Oh, I like that.
And our superintendent, Dr. Vicki Reed, that was her whole focus, was what does this have to do with student success? And if it's not going to help them be successful, then we're not doing it. So I was very fortunate to grow up under a leadership model that demanded that we put students first across the system. So I was very fortunate not to really face too many of those challenges. She was very open to productive discussions, and there were a few times her career was elementary and middle, and there were a few times she and I we just agreed to disagree, and we still laugh about some of that now. We had to agree to disagree, but we still both had a huge amount of respect for what the other was trying to accomplish, and the message that you were trying to send as the importance of what we were doing. I was fighting for my students in my school. Yeah. She was fighting for the whole system, and that sometimes doesn't look the same.
Right.
And
that's why when I was at the district office in HR, and sometimes having to be the grim reaper at the beginning of the year and taking teachers and moving them here and there, trying to explain to the principals why we do this and how we, look at the data and how many kids are showing up once we see the whites of their eyes and those kind of things. So, just from my principal experience, it would have helped me had district office on some of the things that they pushed down, told us their why for it. So I tried to implement that as I became a district office leader.
Yeah. Well, I think that's great insight for our listeners and viewers. You're talking about that communication from the principal level to the district level. And I think it's important for our district level leaders to hear that comment that Cindy's given there, the example that Gina gave, that when Vicki Reed was the superintendent at Murray County, they could have those open dialogue and speak very clearly to each other and work out solutions. So very, very important.
Let me add this being one thing as the principal. Part of our jobs are to lead the vision of the superintendent and the Board of Education.
That's right.
And so when I would leave the office, I went back, like you said, and sometimes even if in your heart you don't feel it, you go back and you sell it.
That's right.
To your faculty.
Amen.
And then you hold them accountable for it, because as a system, you're not going to be successful if that's not the mentality of the whole leadership in the system.
That's right.
right.
It's
And
way better to
it
speak
is
your
way
piece,
better.
share your mind and your thoughts in a professional way, in a professional manner.
Yes.
But when you walk out of that office, the district's vision is what we're doing.
It
right.
is.
And do not ever go on social media
Oh.
and say, I cannot believe.
No.
That's right. Yeah. Or even comments to your staff
Right.
No.
Right?
that you
No.
think I can tell Cindy and she won't tell
No.
anyone.
No.
Before I walked out of the room, Cindy's told 3 people. So I mean, you have to be mindful of that. As a principal.
Absolutely.
That's part
It's
of
a
it.
lonely seat.
It is.
It's a
It
lonely
is.
seat sometimes.
Well, why don't we talk about that? Leadership, sometimes people say, is a lonely position. So as a principal, district office, talk about that and talk about how you combated that and maybe some relationships you had outside of the school and or district to help with that.
Well, I will say one of the best things, and we had talked about this earlier, the support of being involved in GASSP and with the GAEL organization and getting the professional development with leadership and coming to conferences where you were with people who were fighting the same battles, facing the same issues. And so you could network and you had people who were going through what you were going through and you didn't even realize there were other people out there struggling with it. So I would encourage you to get involved in GASSP, GAMSP, GAESP, the GAEL organization. Come to the conferences and build those networking groups because
That's right.
when you are in that lonely seat and it's after school hours and it has been a terrible day and you are facing challenges the next day and you need someone to talk to, who better to talk to than somebody else who is also sitting in that
That's right.
That's right.
lonely seat?
Great
So,
advice. Any follow up to that, Cindy?
No, I will just say, Gina mentioned the 3 principal or assistant principal affiliates, but there are many other
Yeah, tell us
affiliates.
about
We have 7 affiliates. I'm not sure if I can name all of them.
Yes,
GSSA for school superintendents, GASES for the curriculum and instruction supervisors. We've got S-Stage. I don't know what it
Student
stands for.
support.
Let's see.
This is unscripted now. Remember,
Unscripted.
this question was not on the sheet.
That's
was
right. And GASPO for the school personnel administrators.
GCASE.
GCASE for the special education administrators, and GALFA. And I was a member of GASES, GASPA, and GAESP throughout my professional career, and all of them provided me what I needed at the time that I was in those roles.
Yeah, I can remember when I went to my first GAEL conference. It was at Jekyll Island Summer GAEL. I saw the number of people, and I thought, what am I doing here? And I will never fit in. I'm not good enough to be here. I'm not smart enough. All the things, you're not enough. And when you just keep coming and you build that network, the next thing you know, you have an unbelievable professional network that you can call on people and share ideas and ask for advice. So that's just phenomenal. But let's talk about your professional mentors or people that really helped call out your strengths in your career. Start with Gina.
Vicki Reed, Dr. Vicki Reed would have been one of my first. She was very confident. I had coached her daughters in basketball, and she was, anytime I was hesitant, she was just like my mom with saying, oh, yes, you can. When she first said, okay, now you get the principal's job at the middle school. It's like, I don't even know what I don't know. And she was like, and you will figure it out and you will do great. I mean, she just had a level of confidence in me to put me out of my comfort zone and then support me to help me succeed. She was always very student focused. She was thick-skinned, and she did not care to fight the hard battles. And it was just a perfect fit for me because that is kind of my mindset as well. I don't care to work hard. I have thick skin, and I don't care to fight the battles. And so she was there to support all of those difficult decisions. So by far, Vicki Reed was one. Also, Dr. Allison Oxford. She was part of GAEL. She was a special education coordinator. Part of all of the GAEL organizations, was president at one point of the special
GCASE.
Yes, I couldn't think about it. I had GASES on my mind, but she was the president of GCASE, and I did not have a lot of experience with the law when it came to special education. And she was our special education director, and she was sharp, and she knew her stuff. And there would be things she would be saying, we're going to do this, and I would say, no, we're not. I don't understand why we're doing this, And she would sit down with me, and she really was a great friend. She ended up, she and I are still really good friends, but she helped guide me through learning special ed law beyond what you learn in your degree, and really understanding how to work with the population and how to help them grow and how to find different areas of things. And so I really, really look up to Dr. Oxford.
That's awesome.
As I was learning and growing in the special education world.
Cindy?
Gosh, I've just been sitting here thinking of all the many people that have contributed and encouraged me along the way, and there have been so many, and to name out a few, it's very difficult, but I will attempt to do that. There's a group of ladies, there were four principals, elementary or primary school principals, that were principals when I was a principal, that we just kind of clicked, had the same philosophies, just had a lot in common. And we would get together for breakfast every time before a superintendent's meeting, and then we would go have lunch every time after a superintendent's meeting. And it was just a great time for us to get together and talk through our frustrations or problem solve together. But those wonderful people, we have a Beach Babe text group. And the reason we're the Beach Babes is because one of them, she has a beach condo that we go to twice a year, and we hang out together still. Nice. So that would be Melanie Loggins, Linda Horn, Andrea McGee, and Kim Halstead. So
that is awesome. Awesome.
Yes.
You had a PLC
right
did. There at House before anybody even knew what a PLC was. Right? That's awesome. Well, as we wrap up, maybe one more question for each of you. What advice would you have for young female leaders out there that are getting ready? Maybe this is their first year on the job, or they're getting close to getting that first job. What advice would you have for them?
I would say keep students first, and you have to have a thick skin. I would also encourage you to stay off social media and not look at all of those comments.
Great advice.
That they are posting about you on social media as you become more of a decision maker in the leadership roles, because you will drown in some of their comments, and you can't argue back. You can't fight back with that. So, but always keep students first. Stay strong in your values and your commitments, and realize you've got to really have a thick skin. And then the last thing I would say is never, ever stop learning for yourself. Never stop your own growth.
Good.
Yeah, I used to say, if you ever feel like you know it all, you're there, you need to retire, because you never, ever get to that point where you know it all.
Or that you just don't want to learn anything else. I'm tired.
Or try something different.
Right. If you don't want to do that, it's time.
Yeah.
Yep. I guess what I would say to, it's really more than just to female leaders, any leaders, but to remember to take time for yourself and always strive for that work-life balance. it's very difficult to do because that principal role, Ben mentioned earlier, it's one of the hardest jobs, I think, in the district, but it's also one of the best jobs.
It's the best.
It
Absolutely.
is the best and most rewarding. It is wonderful. And I hope you can enjoy it while you're in that role because it is such a wonderful thing. But take care of yourself and, don't stay up there at school till 11 o'clock at night and go home and come back at 4 o'clock in the morning. And because if you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of other people, the other people that you need to take care of, which are your staff, your students, your family. And your number one priority is family. And that was what I tried to teach my teachers too, that were workaholics and thought they had to be there, early in the morning, late at night. Because the thing is, if you're there working till 11 o'clock at night and you fall over dead at your desk,
How long will it take?
probably the next morning, the school district will have your job posted or an interim named.
That's right.
They're going to miss you and they're going to love you still. And they're going to say, I'm so sorry. She was such a good leader.
right.
But your family's going to miss you. So, spend that time, make that a priority to be with your family when you can and take care of yourself. Go get those facials and massages.
Yes.
Do that.
Yes.
Fantastic advice. And thank both of you. Thank you for your
Absolutely.
wonderful careers. Thank you for continuing in public education in different roles. Y'all are phenomenal. I look up to both of you. I've learned a lot. I learn a lot from Cindy every day here at GAEL.
What not to do.
Speaking of continuing to learn, you'd be amazed at the things Cindy pushes me to learn with AI and ChatGPT. It really is. We try to stay on the cutting edge as well. But thank you for joining us on this episode of GAEL Unscripted.